Well, good afternoon. Yes, it's me. A new look, but it's me. Welcome to Thinking Tuesday. It's so great to be here with you once again. I just love to be here when we intentionally take a pause to talk about our thinking, how much it is in the center of all that we do, how it drives our feelings and our behaviors. It is the driving force that determines if we are reactive or proactive. It determines if we are in control or if we're out of control. And you know, by now, for those of you who are regular listeners or visitors, you know that our slogan here is your mind is a garden, your thoughts are the seeds, and you can grow flowers or you can grow weeds. And the beautiful flowers are those positive thoughts, the mindset that we focus on Thinking Tuesday. And the weeds are those negative thoughts, those self-limiting thoughts that limit us from our potential and keep us stuck in positions that don't serve us. So you may often wonder why things happen to you. We wonder why things happen to us. But if we imagine that we have control over all we do and that things don't just happen to us, but we play a part in it also. So if we examine our actions closely, we will often find that our actions were preceded by the thoughts that we had. So we can let our thoughts lead us to making good decisions, or we can do the opposite, which is having our thoughts lead us to decisions that don't serve us well. You know, it is said that 10% of life is what happens to you, and 90% is how you respond to it. So we have more control over a lot of what happens to us. And all of it is how we show up, how we think about it, and how we respond. When we realize and accept that we have more control than we think we do, then it shifts our minds, or shifts our thinking from a scarcity mindset to abundance mindset, which is what I spoke about 2 weeks ago. Well, for the last 2 weeks, I have shared on the topic of abundance and scarcity mindset in my last two messages, but I just feel compelled. I feel compelled to hang in there just one more week at least. It might change next week. And this is as a result of an experience that I recently had. And I want to use this experience to show you what I've been talking about, how our thinking drives our feelings and then our actions. Let me ask you this question. Have you ever been in a situation where you were so sure, that you were making the right decision, and there was absolutely nothing that would make you change your mind? We've all been in those situations, right? And it feels good when we're certain and we know what we're doing and we know why we're doing it, and then we act. And especially if it's an issue about principle or integrity. Those are two values that most of us have. And those two values really drive how we think and how we behave. And I share this with you because I think, like I said, it's a good example of what I speak about on Thinking Tuesday, about how our thoughts drive our feelings, and in turn, how our feelings dictate our actions. So this is what I want to share with you, and hopefully you'll see how it connects with what I talk about in terms of your thinking, the value of your thinking, and how you are controlled by your thinking, and how you have to be in tune with what you think. You have to examine why you're thinking what you're thinking, how you're thinking, and what you're thinking. and what the consequences of your thinking will be. So I've been planning on an event that I had previously and had an agreement with the venue for some time now, for at least a year, right? Nothing in our agreement had substantially changed. It was the same thing. It was going to be same setup, same venue, same hours. Nothing substantially had changed. However, recently, a new management had taken over and new policies were put in place, which directly and at the time I felt significantly affected my plans for my event. And although I understand business and I understand why the new policy is in place because it does make sense, I felt that our previous agreement should have been honored, if nothing else, on principle. So I felt very strongly about it that I so seriously considered canceling the event. There would be no penalties towards me. But on principle, I felt that I would cancel this event because they were not going to honor a previous agreement after they had changed the rules, right? That sounds reasonable to all of us, right? But I have learned to give myself time to process every decision I make. At least I try to. I try to be reflective. I try not to be reactive. Sometimes I go there, but I pull myself back. That's when you realize that you're in control, that you don't necessarily have to go where your thoughts take you all the time, or you check in with them and then you take a back seat and really reflect on them. I've also learned to tap into my feelings and what are the thoughts that are leading to those feelings and the consequences of the final actions that I might take. That's the way that I try to live my life. I have a thought, I have a feeling, I'm moving towards a decision. If something about it doesn't feel comfortable, I want to stop. I want to reflect. And I want to be sure before I move on. So I'm sure that you know how tempting it is, how tempting it is to move in a direction when you have strong feelings, especially when you feel that you're correct in letting them drive your actions, right? That feels good. We're in control. We are gonna do what we want to do, what we feel is correct. It's nice to feel that we are in control of a situation, doesn't it? It just feels good. You feel confident, you're moving forward, you have your decisions, you know you're wise. But I've also learned to question and coach myself through these moments. I have to listen to what other messages are emerging as I allow myself to be fully present in reflecting on those issues where there's some conflicts or some discomfort. In fact, I have to follow the same process that I do with my coaching clients and what I urge them to do outside of our meetings. I have to live what I teach. And I was confronted with such a moment early on last week and partly into this week. So just shortly before I was about to move on my decision, which was to cancel the event, I heard another inner thought emerging that was interrupting my previous thought. That thought that I was so strongly committed to, but I heard something else emerging and I had to pay attention to it because I've learned to pay attention. This is the question that began to emerge, and then in following it up, other questions emerge. And the question was, why are you so eager to give up on something that you've been creating, something that's part of your purpose, just because you encountered this obstacle? I had to ask myself, I had to stop myself. It was just a fleeting thought, well, not so fleeting, but it was a definite thought. It was not a very bold thought, but I heard it. I thought it important enough to stop and tune into it a little bit more. But the question was, why are you so eager to give up on something that you have been creating that is part of your purpose? Just because you have encountered this obstacle, because things are not going to go as they had gone previously. So, as I continued to allow myself to be open to further exploration of the question, many other questions began to emerge that I had to give attention to. Because if you really want to grow, if you really want to show up, if you really want to know if you're moving in the right direction, you can't just pick and choose what you want to listen to or what you want to follow up on. You have to keep an open mind, and you have to tap into what else is emerging. And sometimes there's so much noise that we don't hear what else is emerging. So that's another thing. We have to be still, we have to listen, we have to reflect and pay attention to what's emerging. So that's what I was in the process of doing. I reflected back on my last two lessons, my last two messages here last week and the week before on abundance and scarcity thinking. And the question I asked myself was my leaning to cancel based on scarcity thinking? Because there were some items in there, some issues in there that led me to feel that I might be leaning towards scarcity thinking. And another question emerged following that. And that was, should I be leaning into how I approach the challenge and keeping the original vision of what I want to accomplish? What happened to that? Because this is something that I'm very passionate about. So why was I so willing to give up on that? Because I was looking at principle. I also asked myself, why am I so willing to deny myself, or why would I be denying myself the opportunity to visualize, to create, and actually actualize something that is emerging from my creativity? This is all created by me. So why was I going to shut it down because I encountered an obstacle? I had to really confront myself and ask those questions and answer them, not just ask them, but answer them. And then I finally came to the conclusion that in this case, not that I don't believe in principle, but in this particular case, that was not what I should be looking at. That I was focused on principle and not on the fact that I was not allowing myself to learn to navigate around this obstacle and grow through this experience. Because it's not just about saying I'm going to do this and it happens. There are going to be obstacles. There are going to be challenges. And how we navigate through those challenges and those obstacles determine how successful we are. We learn to do things in new ways when obstacles and challenges face us. Right? So I finally came to the conclusion in this case that I would be denying myself the opportunity to embrace what appeared to be an insurmountable situation. It wasn't that insurmountable after all when I really checked into it and tapped into it. And to see it from a different perspective, to see how I could grow as opposed to what was being done to me and what was being taken away from me. That became insignificant. And in fact, that's not really the issue. That's not really what would be happening. I would be learning to grow through and to adapt to something that was uncomfortable because I would still be moving to fulfill my dream, my purpose. I would also, I felt, I would be limiting myself to doing something in a way that's comfortable. If I had been allowed to do this, it would be a breeze, no problem. But I would be denying and limiting myself to doing something in a way that's comfortable without stretching myself. And I always talk about the law of the rubber band. So I was confronted by the law of the rubber band. What would I do? How could I confront the situation? How could I move ahead? By stretching myself. This challenge was going to stretch me to think in a different way and come to the same conclusion that I want to come to, which is to have this event, right? I would realize the dream I have for this event. I also realized that I would be denying myself another opportunity to move into my purpose. I was also moved later on in my reflection and was more convinced as I reflected that I had come to the best decision by agreeing to move forward with the event. And then I recall James Allen's from As a Man Thinketh, the author of As a Man Thinketh. I recalled one of his quotes. It says that until thought is linked with purpose, there is no intelligent accomplishment. So I had to let my thoughts go back to the purpose. Why do I want to do this in the first place? I would have lost that opportunity. For a moment, and because I was focused on principle, I lost focus of my purpose, which is serving and helping others in their personal growth and stretching themselves, just as I am doing now, beyond what is comfortable so that they can be their best self. So I feel that I have grown through this experience. I'm experiencing part of my better self. And when I really thought about it, the situation is not as difficult as I initially saw it. But I was focused on principle. And for a moment, and thankfully it was only for a moment, a few days, but a moment when you put it in perspective. For a moment, it really caused me to lose my focus. But fortunately, I got back on track. So I'm sharing this experience with you, which is very, very recent, to show you how, as an example of what I talk about on Thinking Tuesday, how our thinking drive our feelings. Because my back went up a little bit when they brought these new policies in. How our thinking and our feelings affect our actions. So I thought, no, we had an agreement. You changed with new management. So my back went up, and then I was going to cancel my event. And then I thought, no, I would be denying myself of learning how to navigate through this experience. All is not lost. I will still be able to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish, what I set out to accomplish. And those who want to experience this event with me would have the opportunity. I would not be denying them. So always, always, always try to check in with your thinking, especially when you are confronted by obstacles. What is your ultimate goal? Are you going to accomplish it? If there's another way to do it, fine, but sometimes another way is not the best way. So I just wanted to share that with you. I thank you for listening. I thank you for tuning in on Tuesday. I thank you for sharing this. Please continue to share it. You can see the replay here. You can see it on my YouTube channel, Cheryl Burton, Thinking Tuesday. Please visit my website, drcherylburton.com, to see all of the programs that's related to some of these things that I'm talking about now. And if you have something that you would like to accomplish and you don't see it there, please reach out to me through my website and we can talk. All of my programs are customized to serve the needs of my clients. feel free to reach out for a complimentary consultation. And you can also book me to speak at your events, your organizations, your meetings through my website. So I want to wish you the best of the day. Continue to think positively, develop that positive mindset, remembering that your thoughts, your mind is a garden, your thoughts are the seeds, and you have the choice of growing flowers or you have the choice of growing weeds, and you don't want to grow weeds. So thank you for listening. I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye for now. Take care.